Hi, everybody. Hi, friends. Very excited to be here. So thank you to Utama, to Pabili. Yeah, we really had a great time to engage on this project. I think this is a very cool and up and coming, really one of the superstar projects that I personally have been honored to be part of. The web 3.0, everybody keep talking about that, right? And even though I'm not that much older than everybody else, but it also seems like a new concept. Like what's happening? What's happening to Web 2.0? Only a few moments ago, we are talking about the internet, and then now it's the metaverse, right? So maybe we have some slides, yeah. So I think I myself had to learn a lot more when I was invited to, take part in this project, and it's a journey that is really eye-opening. And I think personally, I think that this is going to be the next internet. I think everybody was talking about this already, in the US, saying that you got to be in on this thing. And maybe we go to the next page. Yeah, so there's a lot of pros and cons. I think a lot of debate. Some of the older players are saying, this is just a trend. And some of the younger people, they're like, I'd rather have a crypto wallet than a bank account, right? And I can see maybe from the traditional financial sector and also being in the real economy about how this is really becoming a solid use case in everything from finance, and not only finance but also payments and also assets, right? So crypto is not just about Bitcoin. I think everybody here probably knows that. It's blockchain. That's the fundamental technology that changed the world. The way that the internet in the 90s changed the world. It basically connected everybody, like the way the internet did, to everybody else without the use of physical barriers, right? So if we know what happened in the internet, we used to write snail mail, like I used to do that to pen pals, let's say. And of course, it takes 2 weeks to arrive, right? But with email, it's free, and then it takes instantly. So we think about assets, and we think about the physical barriers to assets in the world before crypto. And how do I move an asset, for example, or store an asset? Let's say I have a piece of gold. I got to put it under my bed. What if somebody steals it? Somebody comes in the middle of the night, and takes my gold away. How do I keep it secure? And so we go into the crypto world, and this is away from just currency. And I think a lot of governments are getting it a little bit wrong because they think that this is a way for people to replace currency. It's not really a way to replace currency, but it's a way to store assets digitally without the need for physical barriers or physical walls, right? So we see that people are starting to come around, and there's huge demand. And why is it huge demand? Maybe next page, yeah. And it's becoming a lot more mainstream. That was the point of the last slide. And I mean, this is a trend. Even in Indonesia, there are probably more crypto accounts now than stockbroking accounts. And this is saying something, right? This is something that we cannot ignore, because nobody actually marketed crypto. Nobody went out there to the TV station and say, hey, go buy Bitcoin. Nobody spent money on Facebook or whatever saying, hey, go buy, whatever, Ethereum. But it's become really a grassroots kind of a movement. And, friends telling friends, and then it just becomes a bottom-up kind of a trend, just like the way TikTok or Facebook or Instagram became famous. So maybe next. And of course, you saw that with the YouTube. I'm sure we have a lot of good and bad publicity on Nanobyte as well. And the same way with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. There's a lot of people saying good stuff. There's a lot of people who are real believers. And there's a lot of people who are still very skeptical about it. And of course, with every new technology, there's going to be a bunch of incumbents who are very afraid of what it might do to the status quo. So this is a lot of articles from all the news saying all sorts of things. But maybe next slide. But the way we see it, and we in the Sinarmas group, we have been in the financial services business since 50 years ago, let's say, since banking, and then we went to insurance, and then we went to financing, right, and stockbroking, and we went through the whole system of, and in a war time, maybe what was the financial services supposed to be at that time? It was really about people putting their money in a safe place, because it was about savings, and it's about being able to afford to buy things. And then we move into the 80s, 90s, where we saw the Visa and MasterCard, and we saw a lot of use cases start coming up because money became a little bit more digital. So instead of cash, in the 50s, it was just basically putting the money in a bank account and you take out cash when you need. And then suddenly cash became less and less useful in the 80s and 90s. There's internet banking, right? And that kind of revolutionized a lot of our habits. And then from there, we came up with, the world came up with e-commerce, with gaming, with subscription models like Netflix and so on. And that is only achievable because of the transformation between cash and to become cashless. So that's doing Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. Maybe now we have GoPay and OVO. But what's the next big leap, right? And if digital money, in terms of Visa, MasterCard, and so on, gave rise to the whole lot of e-commerce, ride sharing, and so on, digital lending, and so on, what will crypto, which is another next level, right, where we don't even trade in the so-called government-issued tender, so which is what they call fiat money, right? What will this give rise to? And so in the banking system or in the financial services system, we are very excited, at the same time cautiously optimistic, right? Because this can really disrupt a lot of things. For example, now let's say there's interest rates movements. There's inflation, for example. The people who still hold even US dollars or euros or yen, right? These currencies or these assets will be subject to a lot of economics, which is in turn controlled by central banks. And then these central banks are in turn affected by what's happening in the world. So we know with COVID, there's a drop in interest rates. Governments all over the world try to support the small, medium enterprises by, giving money away in employment benefits for the people who lost their jobs. And this gave rise to inflation. And the problem with that is that the money in that fiat system, it gets a little bit eroded, right? The value of it is eroded, not because of central banks, because they need to do this. It's not a fault of any of the central banks, and it's not a fault of any of the governments. But it's just a system that has been created over the past maybe 200 years. Before this, the whole economic system of monetary policy in the in the Roman times, for example, there's no such thing as a central bank. Everybody used gold coins to trade. So we didn't have those kind of issues like inflation. But at the same time, we didn't have e-commerce. So now what happens when we have this traditional system of paper money, and then it's decoupled with assets? Up until the 1970s, the US dollar was actually backed by gold in Fort Knox. And up until sometime in the mid-century, the word sterling pound basically is a sterling of silver, right? You can exchange 1 pound sterling for a pound of silver, sterling silver. But nowadays, a pound sterling, you can't really get a few 100 grams of silver. So what happens to that is that if we hold these currencies, which we need anyway to do transactions, we are affected by what's going on in the world. That's only one thing. And with the war with Russia, Ukraine, and the Iran, and China and Taiwan and all these things, these are all factors which we are all subject to if we do not have a kind of a way out, right? So I'm not even talking about what's next in terms of lending, how blockchain will enable small, medium enterprises to get their manage capital better, be able to break down some of the barriers between foreign placement or even inter-country, inter-regional use of currency or assets. But maybe we go to the next page. So in that sense, besides, there's one of the whole reason for crypto assets is enabling people to be to use these to enable their businesses, right? Or even enable the a worker or a professional, to do their daily jobs. But the other part of it, from a financial investor point of view, is that crypto has become a portfolio diversification strategy. The reason for this is, as what I've mentioned, the whole idea of a portfolio strategy for those of us in the finance industry is you want to have assets that are not linked to each other, right? They don't move together in tandem with one another. So you kind of have this thing called covariance. Means if one asset goes up, the other asset should not go up. Then you have a diversification. If you hold one asset and one asset A goes up, asset B goes up as well, and vice versa. So asset A goes down and asset B goes down. That's not called diversification. That's just putting your eggs in the same basket. So more and more with the global banks, the traditional players like JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, UBS, they're starting to come around and thinking about crypto assets. And I'm not talking about Bitcoin. It can be in the way of NFTs. It can be nanobytes. It can be whatever coin, Shiba, I don't know, right? Doge, whatever that is widely accepted at the time, to become a small part of the portfolio, because these do not move with war or COVID, or if the banks, make a mistake, and they do make mistakes, right? We all know what happened during Great Depression and all that kind of thing, when central banks move interest rates in a very disjointed manner from the real economy, leading to depression, leading to economic deflation, and so on. So crypto has its own market. And what is the determination of this market? The determination of this market is the use of the crypto assets, or the belief that the people have on this crypto asset. So the same way Nanobyte, the reason why Nanobyte is going to be very interesting, besides Bitcoin, of course, everybody has Bitcoin, but Nanobyte, with what Billy have mentioned, is that if we can somehow find the bridge of the crypto asset to the real industry, and that's where hopefully I can come in as this, the advising team for Nanobyte on how to make this happen. And from Sinarmas, we have the full suite of financial portfolio, from insurance to asset management to financing and so on. And some of these may not be, directly possible to do right now. For example, you still can't purchase anything with Nanobytes, right? As a caveat. But as what Pabili says, we can always talk about lending against Nanobytes. now there is a credit tanpa agunan, which is basically non-collateralized lending. So if you just put a nanobyte as your collateral, even if it's worth nothing, it's still the same as credit tanpa agunan. But at least we know that the borrower has some asset, right? That is not completely zero. So I think there's going to be a lot of new innovative ideas that will come up, and I think you guys, the community, has been a real contributor to some of these ideas, and we really want to have more of these discussions. And I think this use case will come from you guys, right? Will come from the community itself. Maybe you will find something that we haven't thought of. And this is also why I'm so excited and very happy to be here, part of the panel, is to give this message. And the difference between a fiat currency and a nanobyte is that the nanobyte, even the name, came from a crowdsourced vote. So we really look forward to crowdsourcing the ideas on what to do with nanobyte. And if the more of you use this, the more this will be valuable, and the more use cases we can use, right? And maybe, hopefully, it will transform the face of what Indonesia, or even globally, we can do with what we call assets, crypto assets, and basically the digital and the metaverse application of these assets. I think that's it. Maybe what's the last slide? Yeah, so that's all. I think, this is just an appendix. There's now 46% of the population have digital crypto wallets. This is a very, very substantial number in El Salvador. Yeah, this is not Indonesia, but I think Indonesia or many countries like India is starting to legalize it, even with tax. Japan is pretty open. Yeah, some countries are still figuring it out. It's fine, but then again, when the internet came about, not everybody loved it, right? There was this saying a long time ago by some inventor. He said everything that can be invented has already been invented, and that's completely wrong, as we know. So there's always going to be people saying nay and so on. So I mean, let's press on. I think the power of the community, and this is what crypto is all about, being decentralized. Yeah, the power of people, and this is what we want to bring in nanobyte, right? Nano as in bringing it to become small, so everybody has a piece of it, everybody can participate, and you guys all have a voice in this project. So thank you. That's all from me. Good luck to the nanobyte team, and congratulations.